Chapter 27. Fleur had been told to wait. The room was sparse, with only essential furniture of a small table and two chairs. The window was small, high, and dirty enough to not let much light in. An electric bulb hanging from the centre of the ceiling cast the room in yellow light, and the murky walls of drab grey did nothing to enhance her impression of this place. She could feel the hard edges of the chair upon which she sat, and it seemed to speak of the whole building, spare, cold, unforgiving. She took the opportunity to escape into her thoughts, how she recently prepared her father for his burial. She kept the service private. It was held in Appleby's chapel, whose last grieving family had been the Wrens. She recalled settling her father's black tie for one final tightening beneath his collar, the last time she would touch the first man she'd ever loved. He looked splendid. That ashen pallor had been warmed up with her tender and skilful ministrations. It was hard to close the coffin, and she had wept as the young helpers had checked. It was fast. "Well, take it from here, miss. Robbie has said in his kind way, you have done him proud." Had she? Couldn't she have done more? And maybe saved him. Not from himself, a small inner voice assured. And that voice was right. Her father had never stopped grieving over the loss of May, and he had begun his decline from the moment of her passing. Resigned and sad, he had let life happen around him, never fully engaging again, and perhaps his one final thought, Fleur hoped a happy one, was that his daughter had finally found someone she liked so much she wanted to introduce them. She had not been ready for the gathered crowd on the day of the funeral. They had lined the length of Port Road waiting for her father's hearse. As it rolled somberly past, the women dipped their gazes and the men removed their hats to cast a silent nod to a man who had served the community faithfully and with the generosity she hoped now shone through her. It was why she was here. Her father would expect it of her. Fleur found herself facing the only person she had ever hated. Hate was not a word that May Appleby had tolerated, and she had taught her daughter never to use it, but Fleur couldn't help herself. She sat across from the pale-faced woman who had not lost her sneer. "Come to gloat?" Irma asked, sitting in the rickety chair. She was being held in custody until the trial, but somehow didn't seem affected by the grim surroundings. Fleur bristled. "No, I brought you some clothes." "I won't need any, Fleur. They have to prove it all, and they won't be able to." Fleur nodded, schooling her features to neutral. She was determined not to be baited. "I suppose you'll be running off to your father's solicitors now." "Hadn't crossed my mind, Irma." Fleur sighed. "I told you I'm not motivated by money the way that you are." "Then leave it all alone. It's mine. You didn't earn a cent of it, but I shall spend every cent when I get out of here." "I doubt you'll be getting out," Fleur warned, helpless to stop herself. "A murder charge is as serious as it gets." "That's on you. You put it here." Fleur had to ball her fist beneath the table to find her control. "Irma, it will go better for you if you simply confess. The prosecutor might be willing to go for manslaughter rather than murder." "I thought you want to see me hang, Fleur," Irma replied, surprisingly casual in how vicious she was. She might as well have stuck a blade into Fleur's belly. It felt like a brutal attack. "No," she stammered, "that's not what I want." Irma shrugged again. "Then why do this to me? My father's death was deliberate." "You're like a stuck needle on a 78. The man was near death anyway, but you have no right to be his judge and executioner." "I don't believe I was. We both know you poisoned him." Irma folded her arms on the table. "Have you ever wondered if that's what Henry might have wanted?" "No, I think I know him well, if not much better than you do. He would not do that to me." Why is it always about you, Fleur?" "Because I was all he had. He had long ceased holding interest for him." "You had long ceased holding interest for him." Fleur looked shocked by the cruel words she had just said. "I didn't mean that." Irma actually laughed. "Yes, you did. But he had lost interest in everything, including you." Fleur swallowed. "He didn't have the opportunity to put his affairs in order." "He did. It's all mine. I told you that." Irma were going circles. "Would you prefer I don't come again?" "Yes, I have no desire to look at your smug expression." "What happened to that young man you were so keen on, by the way? Did he not stick around?" "I don't know where he is." "So you drove him away too, did you?" It hurt to even ponder. Fleur shook her head. "You should have stuck with Jimmy. Could have been married and in the family way by now, and no need to lie." Fleur frowned while she watched Irma's eyelids flutter, as though she hadn't meant to say that much. "What do you mean?" Irma simply smiled, putting a finger on her lips. She was enjoying herself. She had underestimated Fleur ability to make connections with speed. Irma had her let something slip. Fleur wouldn't let it go. "What did you do, Irma?" Now her stepmother laughed openly, deciding there was little else to lose anyway. It was like entertainment for her on a boring day, Fleur decided. And if someone was watching, they could not be blamed for imagining Irma was not the one accused or facing a trial. "Tell me," Fleur said. trying to keep it firm. A demand, not a plea. Irma's self-assured smile triggered her mind to chase down what her stepmother could possibly feel so conceited over, and then a jigsaw piece fell into its rightful place, the one she'd been searching for days since Tom had disputed the letter. Her voice sounded small and coarse. "You sent it," she said, in an incredulous tone, shaking her head as if warding off evil. "Oh, Irma, what did you write?" Her enemies chuckled. "Whatever it was, it sent him sculling, didn't it? I'll be damned if you'll get to live out your happy life at my expense. You could have left things alone, even walked away with the young man and gone to live anywhere you please. I would have left you alone and set you aside to rule my life, so I decided to ruin yours." "What did you tell him?" Fleur hadn't realized. She now stood and was yelling. Please move alongside hurriedly. Over Irma's laughter, he cautioned Fleur. "You have to keep your voice low, Miss Applewhite, and return to your seat." Yes, I'm sorry." He moved away and Fleur did as asked, directing a scorching, almost fevered gaze towards Irma. "Look at you, Fleur, so much passion. At least we know someone can ignite your lust, because I've always thought of you as sexless. It's as if, Irma, I know you're enjoying yourself, so why not keep up your entertainment and enjoy watching me learn about your latest sinister action?" "Nothing much to tell," Irma replied conversationally. "I simply warned him off." "With what?" "I don't think Tom is easily spooked. Seems he was once he learned that you had reconsidered your situation actually to do what your family wants by marrying Jimmy. He would never have accepted that we were planning. Clearly he did once he learned you were pregnant." Fleur's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Emma filled the silence with a nasty sound of abasement before continuing, "And that he shouldn't come sniffing around between you and Jimmy now that you're going to have Jimmy's child too. Careful." There was nothing more to say. Fleur put her head into her hands and allowed the sound of Emma's laughter to deafen her thoughts. Chapter 28. While Fleur had been preparing her father's body for burial and awaiting news of a trial date, Tom was making his way to an address in Carrington Street. He knew that Irma Appleby had been arrested and that 2 witnesses had come forward with incriminating evidence that would most likely lead to a conviction. He didn't want to know more, did not wish to be involved. The police had told him he was not required for the investigation, but they wanted an address where they could reach him. He'd given the post office at Farina, not knowing what else to say. He had temporarily belonged in the city, but would be leaving soon enough, and ever since that moment, Tom had realized, not sure whether it was with a sinking feeling or just comfortable resignation, that he really would be returning home. He knew how to live in the bush, and it seemed that city life, exciting as it might not be for him, not alone anyway. He helplessly reached towards memories of his mother. He could see her sitting at the side on his favourite big branch of the coolabah, using its vantage to appreciate a spectacular sunset. She was smiling the smile he loved, which seemed to shine straight from her heart. Her eyes, he recalled, was the colour of faded Vaseline glass. They could fire when she was happy, as though the uranium in the glass was being eliminated. She had given a sound of deliberate awe at the sky. "Tom, will you look at that?" she said, even though his attention was already riveted on the same spectacle. "It looks like a peacock's tail. Remember the picture I showed you?" He nodded as she glanced over at him. "Well, the colours in the sky shaped like the fan of the peacock," she pointed. "I can just see the last tip of the sun, like a fiery halo, and it's throwing those burnished golden striped feathers towards us. I wish I could touch them," he replied. "That's a mix of Cyrus and Cumulus. Do you remember?" He had nodded, but had told a fib. He couldn't remember which type of cloud was which. She knew so much about lots of things. She was a clever one, and he often sensed that his father felt awkward around her knowledge. Tom had never thought them well suited, but as long as his father was in her presence. His mother was laughing. As young as he was, he sensed their love, and that was enough, wasn't it? "You're so like your father, Tom, handsome and awfully taciturn." He hadn't known that word, and his eloquent mother liked to use words like that. He figured it must mean quiet, because that's what he was. He didn't feel a need to be noisy like his father. He preferred to observe, to speak when there wasn't something to be said. Was that taciturn? Perhaps. His father wasn't quiet. He never considered his father handsome either, and had never heard described that way. But he had liked the compliment all the same. But now Tom understood. She hadn't been referring to Vern, but Tom's biological father, who had obviously been handsome and taciturn. Tom returned to his recollection, which he found comforting. Moira had explained the difference between the clouds, the slightly puffy ones of cumulus and the sitting below the sketchy Cyrus. They looked like ink blots, he remembered saying, hoping to keep her engaged. It had worked. Moira Catchlife had laughed, and being the one to prompt it, lifted his spirits. They do. Well, noted John. He couldn't even remember how she'd clutched her hand around his shoulder and hugged him close as though only the two of them mattered. The colours were so beautiful that made my heart ache. That was his mother neatly summarised. She spoke like this often, especially just before she was about to cry. He couldn't have that. Shall we mark off another day, Mum? He suggested, leaping nimbly down from the tree, hoping to distract her. He'd watch her look back at him with damp eyes. Yes, Tom, let's do that, and hopefully we'll have news of her by tomorrow. Now that Tom had a certain amount of distance from life in the outback, he could look at it with some amazement. Surely it was the last place on earth that anyone would want to live, and yet here was. This was home. His inquiring mind had learned from his father and some of the other adults who moved through his life that long before the Europeans British had arrived, the original people of the region had used highly prized ochre for their art, as well as for painting their bodies and sometimes even protection from the ferocious sun. There had been Chinese folk in the region. Tom wished he had met some of them, but they had left by the time he'd reached Adulthood. Now the town had Afghan people like Kul Muhammad, who led long, snaking camel trains across the northern border. Tom's own folk were British, his father Scottish, and his mother's people originally from Hampshire in the south of England. The climate did not suit either. "We're at your stop, mate," the bus conductor said, interrupting his thought. "Oh, thank you very much," Tom said, flicking him a grin. "Looks like you've had a rough trot, mate." Tom nodded, a misunderstanding. "I was the wrong fella," he added, feeling those words resonate. "Ouch," someone said, also moving downstairs to online. Join him. I'll be right soon enough," Tom assured them and lifted a hand to wave farewell to both. As he walked away, he tried to disguise his limp, which has nothing to do with his leg, but the sharp and searing reminder that came from his ribcage with each step. He looked around to get his bearing. He was on Wakefield Street and now across the wide road, turning to face the shopfront court Central Motors. This is what he had hoped to see, according to the directions he'd been given. So not lost yet, he thought wildly. A line of cars was parked on an angle in front of the buildings, but where he stood, the cars were parked parallel to the curb. He recalled word for word what the bus conductor told him. "If you're facing Central Motors, keep walking to the right and you'll come to a wide street called Pulteney. Turn right there, cross over Angus, and the next street you'll come to Carrington. You'll need to work out the house number, but it's not a long street that you can get into much trouble." The conductor gestured with his hand as he continued. "If you go too far, you'll do a sort of zigzag on each terrace around the East Pavilions. Just remember, Adelaide was built on a simple grid. You can always find your way back." Tom headed east and found Putney, which felt like a main road. It cut through the city north to south. Carrington was only a minute or so away by his reckoning. Despite the limp and the aches, he soon found himself standing in front of a familiar two-story residence that appeared as grown now as it had 2 decades ago. He felt vaguely sick to be back here, and memories began flooding in on the day he arrived. It was such a cheerless welcome. His single bright memory of the experience was flew, and he leaned on the knowledge that without that awful experience, they never had met, fallen in love, or had been planning their life together. "Be grateful for every good thing in your life, Tom," his mother told him, because it was said so often. It had tended to flow over him, but now he focused on it. Every good thing was flow, and while he couldn't be grateful for the sorrow of his life, he felt the push and pull of destiny, that every sad event had led him further along his path to rediscover flow. He squared his shoulders, ignored the pain it caused, and rapped on the door. It took an age to answer. A man with rolled up shirt sleeve opened the door. He looked distracted and had a burning cigarette between his fingers. "Yes." Before Tom could speak, he held up a hand. "No travelling salesman, please. I thought we'd told every one of you enough times, although I don't recognise you, so I'll give you the benefit of the doubt." "I'm not a salesman," Tom said bluntly. "Actually, you look like a boxer," the man replied with a slight sneer. "But whatever you're selling, we don't need it, thanks." He began to close the door, and uncharacteristically Tom felt the rush of anger at being dismissed with such disdain. This was how they'd likely treated his mother. "Wait up, mate, you're being rude. I've travelled a long way to come here. I don't care where you've hailed from, you country bumpkin. Please leave us or I'll call the police." Tom laughed. "For what reason? Knocking on your fancy door? Trespassing, go on, bugger off, knock on another door." Tom gazed narrowly at him this time, and the man started to close the door. He struck his foot firmly in the way. "Not so fast, Mr. Daniel. You're Daniel, right?" Tom saw the flash of surprise in the man's eyes, and then his gaze came quickly into suspicion. "What if I am?" "I'm Tom Catchlove, but you and your family might understand quickly if I use the name Wintro. Now the eyes widened, but before Daniel could speak, a pale-faced woman with thick tuck haircut, fashionably short, sidled up behind him. Who is it, Father? It's no one, dear. I remember you, Tom said. You are the girl at the window. Thanks for listening.